She saved his cattle in the storm. Rich rancher thought she was a miracle. The night the storm came, Caleb Harlan was standing alone on his porch, watching the sky tear itself apart. Lightning split the plains in white-hot veins, thunder rolling so hard it rattled the windows of the biggest ranch house in 3 counties. The wind howled like something alive, clawing at fences and bending the cottonwoods until they screamed. Somewhere out there, beyond the dark hills and flooded pastures, 800 head of cattle were panicking. Caleb had money, land, power. But at that moment, none of it mattered. All he could think was, please don't let them scatter. Because if the herd broke through the north fence and into the ravine, they'd drown. And no amount of money could undo that. He grabbed his hat and was about to run for the truck when he saw her. A lone figure on horseback, riding into the storm. At first he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. No one in their right mind would be out there. But another flash of lightning revealed her clearly, small against the chaos, coat plastered to her body, hair whipping free beneath her hood. She was riding hard toward the ravine. Caleb's breath caught. "Lady, you're gonna get yourself killed," he muttered, already moving. Her name was Lila Moreno, though Caleb wouldn't learn that until much later. She had grown up poor, the daughter of farmhands who moved wherever there was work. Storms didn't scare her, hunger did. Losing everything overnight did. She'd learned early that when trouble came, you didn't hide, you acted. That night, she'd been driving home from a late shift at the diner when she saw the cattle piling against the fence, eyes wild, hooves churning mud into a black river. She didn't know whose ranch it was. She only knew what would happen if they broke through. So she turned her truck around, loaded her old horse from the nearby paddock she rented, and rode out. No plan. No backup. Just instinct and heart. The wind nearly tore her from the saddle as she reached the ravine fence. Water was already pouring down the slope, rising fast. The cattle were pressing, bawling in terror. Lila rode the line, shouting, waving her arms, using the horse to turn the lead steers away from the weakest posts. When one section cracked, she jumped down into the mud, hammering it back into place with a rock, her hands numb, rain stinging her eyes. She slipped. Fell. Got back up. Again and again. Somewhere behind her, engines roared to life. By the time Caleb reached the ravine with his foreman and 2 ranch hands, the worst of the stampede had passed. The cattle were calmer now, clustered safely on higher ground. The fence, damaged but holding. And there she was, standing in the rain like she'd been carved out of it, mud up to her knees, one hand on her horse's neck as if reassuring him. Caleb stared. In all his years of ranching, with all his hired help and expensive equipment, he had never seen anything like it. "You saved them," he said, voice almost lost to the storm. She shrugged, shivering. They needed it. That was it. No speech. No pride. Something in Caleb's chest shifted. The storm passed by morning, leaving the land raw and glistening. News traveled fast in a small town, and by noon everyone was talking about the woman who rode into the storm. Caleb tried to find her. When he did, it wasn't where he expected. She was back at the diner, refilling coffee cups like the night before hadn't happened. "You're the rancher," she said when he walked in, recognition flickering across her tired face. "I am," he replied. "And I owe you more than I can say." He tried to offer money, more than she'd probably ever seen in one place. She pushed the envelope back across the table. "Keep it," she said gently. "Use it for the ranch." That stunned him more than the storm had. "No one does something like that for free," he said. She met his eyes. "Someone should." That was the moment Caleb realized the storm hadn't just tested his fences. It had tested his values. Caleb Harlan was known as a tough man. Fair, but distant. He paid well, donated to causes, but always from arm's length. People respected him, but they didn't really know him. Lila changed that. He insisted she at least let him help her, fixed her truck, paid off the vet bills for her horse, offered her steady work on the ranch. She hesitated, pride wrestling with practicality, but eventually agreed. Working side by side, Caleb saw things he'd never noticed before. How she checked on the older hands when they were tired. How she stayed late to help a neighbor mend a fence that wasn't hers. How she treated every living thing like it mattered. One evening, months later, another storm rolled in, nothing like the first, but enough to make Caleb uneasy. He found Lila standing by the pasture, watching the sky. "You ever get scared?" he asked. She smiled softly. "All the time." "Then why do you keep running toward trouble?" She thought for a moment. "Because someone has to." The answer hit him harder than thunder. The real turning point came that winter. A freak freeze swept through the region, killing livestock, bankrupting small ranchers, forcing families off land they'd worked for generations. Caleb watched neighbors pack up, their pride shattered. For the first time, he understood something painful: he had been lucky. And luck came with responsibility. At a town meeting, voices tense with fear, Caleb stood up. "I have land," he said. "Feed. Shelter. And I have more than I need." The room went silent. "I'm opening my ranch," he continued. "We'll get through this together." People stared. Some cried. Some didn't believe him. Lila did. Later, she found him alone in the barn, staring at the cattle. "You okay?" she asked. "I keep thinking," he said quietly, "if you hadn't ridden into that storm, I'd still be the same man." She shook her head. "You always had this in you. You just needed a storm to bring it out." Years later, people would tell the story differently. They'd say a miracle saved Caleb Harlan's cattle. They'd say one woman changed a powerful man's heart. They'd say the storm took more than it gave, but not that night. Caleb never corrected them. He knew the truth. Miracles don't fall from the sky. They show up muddy, shaking, and human. They choose compassion when no one is watching. They act, not because they'll be rewarded, but because it's right. And sometimes, when someone dares to ride into the storm for others, they don't just save cattle. They save a piece of humanity. And that, Caleb believed, was the richest thing a person could ever own.